One of the kind of main themes, I think, of public discussion, certainly kind of in the Twitter sphere and blogosphere and in politics now, is privilege, is oppression, is structural inequality, all this kind of stuff. Where do you come down on that? Or what about, say, the concept of white privilege, for example?
I think it's garbage, completely. I think it's utter garbage. I think someone could argue that in any given country, you may have some form of majority privilege. I mean, the whole thing of white privilege is it's essentially a little essay or paper by some woman that went way too far, right? You know, they had that whole I can't remember the name of the woman who first wrote the paper on it and the invisible knapsack and whatever. It was, you know, a relatively short paper just with this idea of white privilege, right? It was just kind of an idea, and for whatever reason, over the past few decades, people kind of refound this paper and ran with it. And so now you've got politicians and you've got actors and you've got just general people talking about this whole concept. So I don't think it exists. And there's people who will criticize me for that. I think that's a garbage concept, and I think it's a harmful concept. It's not just that I don't believe it exists. I actually think it's a terrible concept to try to ingrain in people. All these forms of privilege, right? If you're trying to tell males that they have male privilege, you're trying to tell white males they have white privilege and male privilege and heterosexual privilege and this, and you're trying to create this whole what is it? Jordan Peterson always refers to the postmodern neo-Marxist state. It's kind of become a meme by now, right? But it is true because it's destructive. This is the problem, right? I don't support any one. I think that I don't think it's true. I think that factually, like when someone talks about white privilege, I'm like, okay, tell me what exactly you mean by that. The things they say generally don't have anything to do. Again, oftentimes they could just fall into majority privilege. So they might say stuff like, oh, if you buy a plaster, it's the color of, it's closer to a white person's skin color than a black person's. And it's like, okay, but if you go to Africa, it's the opposite because that's the majority. Or when you're watching TV, you're more likely to see white faces on TV than black faces or Asian. I'm like, you're in England. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're in England. If you go to Nigeria, everything's like everyone's black. Like, you look at an ad, you look on TV, you look at the films, everyone's black. It's like because you're in Nigeria. If you go to China, same thing. You know, it's not rocket science. I've heard people say stuff like if the shampoo in hotel bathrooms works better on white people's hair than it works on Afro hair. And again, I'm like, what country are you in? Why would you expect they're going to have some special niche black Afro shampoo in, I don't know, Cambridge, in a hotel? And then similarly, I'm kind of like, look, if these are the things people have to complain about, like stuff must be pretty freaking stuff must be pretty freaking good. Yeah. If this is what you are complaining about, right? If these are your examples and this is the best you're coming at me with, then I'm like throw that thing out the window. And then secondly, I just think that it's I think it's quite a racist idea. To be honest with you, I think it's a very racist idea to start claiming based on people's skin color, based on people's sex, based on people's sexuality, assuming they have some kind of advantage or disadvantage that they've just inherited, and that no matter what they do, you know, they need to kind of acknowledge it and atone for it and check their privilege, and you can now kind of beat them with the stick, right? Every time you say something I don't like, I can say, well, you're using your white male privilege to victimize me.
Well, let me use some of my white male privilege to try and push back on some, just for the sake of being devil's advocate.
Let's do it.
Because I hear a lot of what you're saying, but a lot of people might say, well, if you and I were walking down the street in this country, I am not from here, you actually were born here, unlike me, right? But the police would treat us differently because I'm white and you're black.
According to what?
Black people are more likely to be prosecuted. Black people are more likely to get a longer sentence, a harsher sentence for the same crime. People say you're more likely to be arrested, etc. Right?
For what? Arrested for what? If arrested for what? I mean,
you're more likely to be. Let's say you're more likely to be stopped and searched. Right? We know that.
Okay. What? Like in London or something?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's. There's a couple reasons for that. Okay, So the whole stop and search thing, that's a complicated issue. I mean, everything has like a flip side. So the flip side of this one is obviously in certain areas, in certain cities, in certain countries, the breakdown of demographics who commit certain crimes is different. Okay, so if the police are trying to sort out knife crime in London, take the obvious example, right? Violent crime in London, violent crime in Chicago in the USA, take some obvious examples. Vast majority of perpetrators are young black men. Vast majority of victims are young black men. So does that mean that the police, this is where the nuance comes in and people try to avoid the nuance, right? Does that mean that the police should then go out and just target all young black men because they know that that's the demographic that commits those crimes at a higher rate? No, because the vast majority of young black men do not commit any crime. So it's a complex, this one's a complex one, right? People always try to make it very simple because they'll say, black people get arrested at higher rates or are more likely to be stopped by police. And then it's like, okay, yeah, but that demographic is also committing more crime. So how do we, and oftentimes people won't want to acknowledge that fact because it's not convenient to their argument, but it's like, okay, you need to put both these things on the table and recognize what the facts are. And then you can actually have a proper discussion of, okay, well, given these are the stats, we might not like the stats, but given these are the stats, how can we now address this issue?